So finally, the fully automatic tree farm requiring no player is built. This one does have a bone meal farm, and it doesn't need a player to be around because we have something new, a part of it, a chunk loader, to always keep the chunks running even when we're not around, even when we're in the nether. So maybe about a year ago, I built this machine right here. This is the fully automatic tree farm. No player needed, kind of. Basically, you didn't need to place any saplings or nothing because it used azalea trees to grow trees and to push them and use TNT to destroy them. That way you don't have to physically be planting trees, but there was a couple problems with this design. So the first big problem with this thing is that it required a ton of bone meal. So for example, within maybe like an hour or two of running this whole machine, all of these dispensers would probably be out of bone meal, and a ton of people were asking for a bone meal farm to be connected to this machine because it would run through so much. Another big problem that I found out a bit later was the fact that it required a chunk loader. Obviously, redstone can't be running 24/7 if it didn't have a chunk loader to be loading the chunks, which for example are just these areas that you see around me right here. These chunks had to be loaded when you were building this thing, and I actually found this out later when I built this thing in survival. So now we have the actual fully automatic tree farm right here. This one uses the same exact idea right here actually. These are actually two basically the same designs, but one is actually completely built from the ground up, and this one is based off that old design over there. I did this originally because I built this whole thing brand new and I used all logs, and actually real quick, we're actually going to see the difference between the logs and this one right here, as there are small details that are a bit different. So what really has changed with these builds? Well, honestly, nothing much apart from down here. It's a bit more different because we are now using more dispensers inside of the moss block so that it's quicker. Basically, we're getting more chances to get azalea blocks. Sometimes when moss would spread, it wouldn't spread all the way across, so this is just more effective and faster. Another thing that's obvious is that we're using Ilmango's 26,000 bone meal farm per hour, and this thing just cranks out a ton of bone meal, and we actually get some in reserve. So this thing produces a ton of bone meal because this thing requires a ton of bone meal, but we actually get a little bit of bone meal back. And of course, the last thing is that we have a chunk loader right here. This chunk loader is actually loading, it's loading 9 chunks, I think 9 chunks hard. So all these chunks are hard loaded, meaning that they are basically like me being here, like a player being here, and then it loads a 5x5 chunk soft. So that means any redstone and things like that can be loaded. So for example, basically what this means is that this chunk loader is actually loading a 3x3 area, and this area you can use. Everything runs like normal. Basically, minecarts move, redstone moves, lava moves, items move across and over in the water streams, but in the 5x5 area, only redstone works in this area. So it's actually very important that we build this farm in the corner of, like, basically we have to build it in this 9x9, or this, yeah, in this 3x3. Sorry, these are 3, not 9x9. This is the 3x3 chunk. So as you can see right here, this is actually built in the corner of one, and then if we build out, it loads all these chunks. So what does this thing actually produce? So we actually have the results right here, but it's a thing to note that I actually did these tests without loading the chunks myself. Instead, we were using that chunk loader to actually get wood. It was basically, you were playing like in the game. You just click the lever and then you leave, you go do your other things, you go build your, I don't know, your other tree farm, I don't know, you could all go mining, and you can just leave this thing running, and this is what you're gonna get in an hour. On this one right here, this one, you will get 2,218 wood logs, and then you also get an extra 1,401 bone meal, and this is what it looks like. So in 1 hour you will get this amount of wood, and then in 1 hour you'll get this amount of bone meal. Also, this farm right here has a TNT duper, so this one actually doesn't use any TNT. This one, on the other hand, does not have a TNT duper, as it was actually built more for me. I don't like using TNT dupers, but there is an option if you do want to use one. This one produced 2,287, a little bit more than this one. Could have just been random chance, and it for some reason produced way more bone meal. I do want to note that basically this one is built down here, that way I didn't have to use 2 chunk loaders. And what I believed happened is that some of the leaves, some of the sticks, some of the moss carpet falls down here, and it actually produced more bone meal. It like made it force made more bone meal, and it's kind of a crazy amount, like literally more than double. So I don't know if you will get the same amount of bone meal. Probably not. I would, if you were to build this, I would probably say that you'll probably get around this amount of bone meal per hour. But if you do build this one, then and you get that, that's pretty crazy. And a note about this thing used about 2 stacks and 19 TNT per hour, which is honestly a lot of TNT used, but it is pretty good. Personally, I like using I don't like using TNT dupers because I think it takes away purpose of a mob farm, which is pretty cool to build. Alright, so this is the tree farm actually in my own survival world right here. This thing is pretty big, honestly. It is huge, and as you can see, one big problem with it, we're gonna load the chunks real quick. As you can see, this thing is actually built in like, it's built too long so that one chunk loader doesn't load up all this area, which is bad because this means that I have to run 2 chunk loaders, which means I'm loading a lot of extra chunks. A lot of area is being loaded, means my computer is going to be a little more laggy while I'm playing the game. So that's why I actually completely redesigned. I just moved this so it goes underneath, but now since I built this in my own world, I'm just gonna have to run 2 chunk loaders at the same time. Originally, I did have this one built out for you guys, but then I built it in survival, and then I found out all of these problems later. Obviously, this thing does still produce a crazy amount of bone meal. I think I just had this on for like maybe 10 or 15 minutes, and it was just starting to go. I had to move some logs over here, but we're gonna actually see what this thing actually looks like. Anyways, so now we're actually gonna see what this thing actually looks like, and I think we're gonna use this one down here. So this is what it looks like from the top. This is the bone meal farm, and obviously yours is going to look like this initially. There's not going to be any stone in here, and I don't know why, but Ilmango's bone meal farm is so finicky. It's so sensitive. The first couple runs are just going to be causing a ton of cobblestone, and in these farms we do not want cobblestone because moss doesn't grow onto cobblestone. But yeah, you're going to have a little bit of troubles here. Just make sure that all of this in between is stone. I would recommend before you putting in the lava, just put stone all in here first where you kind of see it, and you will be fine. So yeah, let's actually run this thing. Let's see what it actually does. I have signs kind of telling you what to do everywhere. There's kind of signs everywhere, just in little spots. So there's some right here. All of these hopper clocks have signs telling you how many items need to be in each area. So this one requires 16. This is the main one. This is the main clock that runs everything. This one requires 4. And let's actually so first, what the heck is going on here? We're gonna take a little look, and actually I might turn off my shaders here and take a night vision potion because I can't see nothing. But basically what is happening is that this is loud. Basically this is churning, these dispensers up here are actually just bone mealing this moss, and it's gonna be randomly bringing up things. So it can be grass, carpet, or of azalea, like that one. See, that one was azalea tree, this one's an azalea tree, this one just grew kind of weird. But as you can see, we are going to be pushing out a ton of wood. And while this thing is going, there is a hopper clock up here that is shooting a TNT about every 13 items moved. I don't really know how long this is in real time, but it is relatively slow. It's a slower one because you don't need a ton of TNT running at the same time. And the last thing, of course, we have the bone meal farm just pushing out bone meal, making a ton as much as possible, and it's just converting all of this moss items into bone meal. So this machine also works in 1.21. I'm actually playing 1.21 right now, but I recommend you guys use Litematica to build this machine. But Litematica is not currently updated to 1.21 yet, but I'm sure in the future it will, and we can use that to build this thing because it's going to be way easier. Alright, so now we are in 1.20.4, and I'm quickly just going to show you guys how to use Litematica, just a small little like tutorial, I guess, to use this. So I'm going to actually give you guys the schematic to these builds if you want to use one. This one is brand new from scratch. This is the one I have in my personal world. This one is built off the old design because a lot of people did watch that video. So if you do have the old design, you can just use this machine. You can have this one. The only thing that's changed is actually in the orange, which isn't a lot. It's not a lot, but some things are changed. Like this is, I think, new. There's some certain things that are new, but I'm going to show you guys how to do that. So first thing I recommend is pressing F3G at the same time, and you'll get these chunk borders. And basically what you want to do is make sure that this machine is at the corner of one chunk. It doesn't really matter what chunk you build it in, but you just want a corner of it to be stuck in one chunk. So we're going to load a schematic. No, we're going to do load schematic. And then I believe this one is, whoops, I believe this one is the one. Okay, we're going to have to turn off shaders. And we're going to have to reload. There you go. So basically this is what it's going to look like. You're going to press a load schematic, and this is what's going to happen. So as you can see, this thing isn't actually in the corner of this chunk, so we're going to want it to put it in the corner of this one. So as you can see, we want this to be corner of right here. So we're going to just go here, loaded schematic, schematic placement, configure, and then you're just going to mess around with these buttons to put it wherever you want. Just like that, I think, right there. Oh no, so this is where you kind of just want to make sure things are good. As you can see, this redstone isn't in that corner, so we're going to do loaded schematic. Nope, loaded schematic, schematic placement, configure. Boom, there you go. As you can see, now it's in that corner. We'll take another look just to make sure. And basically this just makes sure that the chunk loader is going to work properly. So that chunk loader is going to be right there, is going to be loading up a 3x3. So once you have this, what you can do, and what I prefer you guys to do, is going to be way easier, is to go to the press M, press configure menu, and then go to render layers, and then do not do layers above all, do I think single layer, and then this is gonna tell you like what layer to put it at. So I think it's like around 100. Say here, yeah. So this is gonna be, it's gonna set you to like a random like spot. So as you can see, we're like halfway through the build, but what you can do is actually configure your hotkey. So you look up next layer, and you can just choose a number. So next layer is 9 for me on my keypad, and as you can see, you can go up, and then next layer down is 6. So go to the very bottom. See, as you can see, right, this is the first layer, and you can just place all that stuff, and then go next layer, place all that, next layer, place all that, next layer, place all that, next layer, next layer, next layer, next layer, next layer, and you'll be going up in no time. It's way easier than trying to build it like just like this. I mean, you can try, it might be easier for you, it might be good to do it every now and then, but it gets a little confusing because that's how I did it. But yeah, also there was a couple things that I wanted to mention. The first one was Litematica is a schematic mod. Basically you can upload schematics to that mod, and then you can project them in the game just like this. I didn't think I made that clear at all, just for in case people didn't know. Another thing that I wanted to say was that this chunk loader is built by Azuma, and he has a whole video on explaining how this thing works. It's like its own little thing, so I'm going to be linking how to build this thing in the description. The only important part that you need to know about this is that you want the chunk loader to be in the middle, basically, as you can see. So there's a chunk over there, for example. Let's go. All right, so basically this red dot is where the chunk loader is loading, and the corner of this machine is right here. That way it has the most amount of space to kind of build out if you need to. But the chunk loader is right here in the middle. For example, it's right here, and then that button over there is basically this corner, and as you can see, it's in the corner. Yeah, so a video to this chunk loader will be in the description, basically from Azuma, explaining how to build it and how it works. But this is it. Actually, this is the whole thing. This is the finale of the fully automatic tree farm, because my goodness, it's been a year since I've came out with this update to this farm, I guess. But yeah, it is finally done.